to kick off, about 5:30.
moment will begin momentarily, so please take your seats. Again, please find your seats as the program is about to begin. That means you who's back there running to the bar.
Gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our Midland County Republican Party Chair, Kathy Lake, to the stage. Thank you.
Shooty Barbecue. It is so good to see so many friends here, all together again, and wow, quite a turnout of friends from across the state, I might add, and I'm truly humbled by your presence here today. Year after year, you always manage to exceed my expectations, but this year, wow, look at the crowd at the Bill Shooty Barbecue, and there's a good reason, and she's sitting right here, and her name is Governor Kristi Noem from the great state of South Dakota. Governor Noem, your presence at today's event is elevated. Oh, look at that. Let's hear it. Look at that standing ovation. We need a picture of that. Governor Noem, your presence at our event today has elevated our local party and energized Republicans from far and wide across the great state of Michigan. And we know your time is valuable. So we thank you for sharing your blueprint for the great state of South Dakota with us. And on behalf of the Midland County Republican Party and Republicans from all over the state, it's an honor to have you here today, and we thank you for being our special guest and keynote speaker. Now, Congressman John Molinar sends his hello, and I'm very sorry he couldn't be here today. He's in Washington, D.C., working on behalf of all of us and voting on our behalf. But I want to say to everyone out here, if you like the job that Congressman Molinar is doing, then you can thank one of his mentors from Congress tonight. That's right, Governor Kristi Noem was assigned to be Congressman Molinar's mentor when he started in Congress. So thank you, Governor Noem, for that as well. Chairman Dave Camp also says hello. He's sorry he couldn't be here. Believe it or not, he happens to be working in South Dakota this week. He texted a picture from Mount Rushmore. It was beautiful. And he also served with Governor Noem in Congress. And I also want to welcome Chairman Mike Rogers. You are always welcome in Midland. Thank you for traveling to be with us today. Long before you announced your U.S. Senate bid, a few of us heard your message at an event in Genesee County. And I think everyone here tonight will appreciate what you have to say. And what would this barbecue be without our namesake, Bill Shooty? I do love saying that, I must admit. Thank you, Bill and Cynthia, for all that you do for our local party. And I also want to welcome all the young Republicans who are here tonight, from high schools and colleges in the area across the state. You all are the future of the party, and we are so glad that you're here. Now, we all know that it takes a great team to pull together a great program, and I want to give a big thanks to all the volunteers and leaders of our small but mighty barbecue team. Julie Carey, Kathy Lunsford, and Jackie Medema. Ladies, I simply have no words to describe my gratitude for the work in pulling this together. Well done. And I want to thank the entire multi-talented team of volunteers who are helping us today. You all simply rock. Would you all please stand and wave and let us give you a big round of applause. Thank you, volunteers. And Governor Noem, I want to thank your team. They have truly been a pleasure to work with. Thank you. And last but never least, I always want to thank my husband, Bill Lycan, the most patient man on earth. I say this many times, and it's because it's true. But every single minute of every single day, I thank God for sending you my way, Bill. Where are you? There you are. Thank you. And of course, an event like this is not possible without a great venue, the Midland County Fairgrounds. And you want to know who's awesome to work with? Nick Hall and his team here at the Fairgrounds have done a fantastic job, and I can't thank them enough for their work. Thank you, Nick. And what a great meal we had, thanks to Dave and Melissa and Brad and their team from the Red Oak in Sanford. Great food. And let's not forget about the actual pig roasting outside. Did you see that? Thank you to Russ Varner for that. Thank you all. And the tunes are off the charts, so thank you, Jared Oster and Amanda Oster. Thank you very much. I've got more people to thank. As if they haven't done enough already, I can't thank our sponsors enough. Our executive chefs, John and Sandy Bartos, JW and Yvonne Fisher, Jim and Connie Sudica, our grill masters, ABC of Michigan, Todd and Deanna Gambrell, Bill and Paget Penn, former state senator Jim Stamas and his lovely wife Marcia Stamas, our grill chefs, former state senator Mike Goshka and his lovely wife Mary Ann Goshka, Vicki and Rod Klova, John Lauterbach, Bill and Kathy Lycum, Seth and Brooke Perigo, Dan and Christina Reimer, and our backyard grillers, Jay Fedewa, chair of Genesee County Republicans, Bill and Linda Lauterbach, Luke Malice of Turning Point Action, and Riley Linting, who is our youth vice chair for state party, two of our young Republicans here tonight, Don and Jackie Medema, Terry and Carlene Moore, and Paul and Ann Van Hall. Let's hear it for our barbecue sponsors. For all of our sponsors and our donors, and everyone who's here today, we appreciate you all and your generosity. There is no way we could be successful without you. And we all know that elections are not won on election day. They start right now with your support and with your help. And in Midland, you come through time and time again, and I can't thank you enough for that. So with that, let me say, thank you all for being here and for what you've done for the party. Welcome to the barbecue, and please enjoy the program.
Midland County Commissioner Gay Terwilliger will now lead us in an invocation.
Please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we praise you for those gathered here today. Lord, we pray for your clear and ongoing guidance and wisdom, not just for leaders gathered, but for all of us. We pray for your discernment and understanding as we work to uphold our Constitution and Bill of Rights. We pray you will guide us as we edge into an election year. We seek to please you, Lord. Help us to listen closely to hear your voice each day. Give us strength to proceed in your direction. And we thank you for the leaders that have traveled to Midland to share their perspectives of how to better navigate our path forward as a community and a region. Finally, we pray for the blessings on the hands that have prepared this wonderful banquet of food. We are blessed indeed. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Please welcome Midland County Register of Deeds, Jenny Anway, who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
And thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join me in giving a very warm welcome to the man our wonderful barbecue is named after, former Michigan Attorney General Bill Schuette.
There we go.
Yeah, okay. I got a... I'm just looking for more time here at the mic. That's what this is all about.
There we go.
Is that working? Well, listen, welcome to the barbecue. Welcome to the Bill Schuette Barbecue. South Dakota style that we're doing this evening. But thank you very much for being here. Thank you for your investment. Thank you all for coming. And your investment this evening is all part of our approach to make sure that we build the organization, raise the money, have great candidates, because in November of 2024, we're going to have a huge, big Republican win in Midland in this region. That's a guarantee. Take it to the bank. So Cynthia and I really appreciate you being here. Thanks so much. And son Bill as well. You'll have your bit here and use the handheld instead of a lot of their money. But a few thank yous are in order because we're so very polite here at Midland. First, Kathy and Bill Lacker. You know, there's something special about Kathy Lacker. She's such an outstanding Republican county chair. She's terrific. And then her husband, Bill, we kind of call him the first gentleman here in Midland because he's married to the Republican county chair. And so the first gentleman, Bill and Kathy, there's something special about them. Give them a round of applause. Well done. Nice job. Good to go. And Gabe Terwilliger, thank you for the prayer. And you know, Gabe does this. She makes sure that the Midland County Commission has a prayer every time they have a meeting. You know, they do that in the United States House of Representatives. Kristi, you and I did that when I served and when you served. So it's good that she's doing that here in Midland. So thank you, Gabe, very much. And then, okay, election alert. Election alert. Okay, Jenny and Anway, please stand. Where's Jenny? All right, so you can stay standing. Now, this is an election alert. Jenny is running for election to County Register of Deeds. So I'm going to ask you in a moment to say, keep Jenny Anway our Register of Deeds. And then you have to say it 3 times. And once you've done that, you're transformed, maybe forever. So, and I want good, robust participation. Keep Jenny Anway our Register of Deeds. Not bad, but I need a little more group participation. Over there in the back there, I need a little bit more help. Second time. Keep Jenny Anway our Register of Deeds. That's better. Now, with gusto now. Last time. Keep Jenny Anway our Register of Deeds. All right, Jenny, you're in like flint. All right, thank you. So now all you have to do is go door to door and ask all these people for a financial contribution. It's simple, it's really easy. Now, before I go and introduce some local county officials and dignitaries, and then I have this opportunity to introduce my dear friend who's running for the United States Senate, just a word about Governor Kristi Noem. You know, we're just thrilled that Kristi Noem came back to Michigan. A couple years ago, you were at Mackinac Island, and that's the second best place to be in Michigan. You know, Mackinac Island is a close second to Midland. But thank you for coming to Midland, Michigan. We appreciate it. And Mackinac is a close second. But I'm impressed by the great job that Kristi Noem is doing in South Dakota. I've seen all her ads. Yeah. You know, and I've seen these ads, which are part of her whole effort for economic development in South Dakota. It's an open economy, you know that. And so these ads are terrific. About an electrician, a plumber, a welder, a dentist. And so I say to myself, okay, now that Kristi Noem, she'd be a good electrician, good welder, great vice president, dentist, great vice president. But anyway, I guess my point is, I'm watching those ads. They're all watching these ads. And, got to read her book. It's not my first rodeo. So go and order from Amazon, and it'll be a compelling read. And ladies and gentlemen, just a quick word. Thanks, Kristi, for coming to Midland. Thank you very much. Now, we've got some countywide officials, and we have all 5 countywide offices up for election in November 2024. And I'm going to ask these folks, these women and guys, to stand. Byron Green, our sheriff, and Keith Jen Anway, our register of deeds, Anway. Kathy Lunsford, our treasurer, and Ann Maneri, our county clerk. Joe Silver, our drain commissioner. Thank you all. We're going to go 5 for 5 in 2024 on our countywide offices. That's a guarantee. Oh, and our prosecutor, J.D. Brooks. All right. Boy. Kathy bailed me out. And J.D., I did that on purpose. You're a special kind of prosecutor. I want to make sure everybody knows that. Thank you. So we're going to go 6 for 6. Thank you very much. Now we have a county board of commission, and we have 6 outstanding Republicans on the county board of commission. Mark Bone, our chairman. Gay Terwilliger, Jeanette Snyder, Steve Glazer, Jim Geisler, and Eric Dorian. And you know what? Let's go 7-0. Let's go for 7-0 in 2024. Let's get a big sweep of the County Board of Commissioners. We can do that, ladies and gentlemen, with your help. Now, we've got a couple of candidates for judge. Locally, Angela Cole, you're here running for probate judge. Thank you, Angela Cole. All right. And this is an important race for the Michigan Supreme Court. Andrew Fink is a great guy, a state representative. Andrew, all right. I know Andrew very well. His cousin used to work with me. A talented family. Lawyers on all sides of that family. And Andrew, we're with you, and we'll work hard for you, that should be sure. Andrew Fink, thank you very much for being here. Thank you. There you go. We've got township officials here, a state representative named Schuette, and he's coming up pretty soon. But let me go to a guy named Mike Rogers. Now, Mike, let me make sure. Oh, Annie Delisle, 8th Congressional District Chair. Jay Fedowa, Genesee County GOP Chair. Mary Moylan from Gladwin, thanks. Judy Rapanis, who had a beautiful birthday last week. Thank you very much. Alex Clark, Delta College Trustee. Riley Linton, Michigan GOP Youth Chair. We got some of the Stamas brothers. We got Jim, a wonderful state senator. Thank you, Jim. And brother Tony's out there someplace. Brad Blasey and John Lauterbach serve on our school board. That is no easy precinct to walk, I must say. But thank you for your service there. Appreciate John and Brad. And Jerry Nyer from Mount Pleasant is here. Jerry, raise your hand. Thank you, Jerry. Yeah. Great. Okay. I didn't miss anybody. Now we're going to get to Rogers. Now, Mike Rogers and I have been friends for 3 decades. He's a solid guy. He's smart, has good judgment. Mike and I served in the Michigan Senate together, where he was a stand-up. Then he had this distinguished, exemplary career in the United States House of Representatives. Mike was a former FBI agent. He understands the strengths and weaknesses of people. And he understands our Constitution and the friction and the tension that was put in there purposely by our founders that sometimes means the fabric of democracy gets pushed and pulled a little bit. But he has the experience to serve as an outstanding United States Senator on day 1. And all too often, people get elected to office really don't have a clue how to do the job. And we've seen some of that recently in the state. But the point is, Mike Rogers is equipped, ready to go. He's a great friend. Glad his wife Kristi is here with him. I like him a lot. Mike Rogers is going to be an outstanding United States Senator. Mike Rogers, say a few words. Yeah.
First of all, I can't tell you how pumped off I am at Mr. Schuette.
Has he aged 1 minute since he got in the office? My God, I don't know how he does. Whatever you're having, I need to have some of that. I do appreciate it. I want to say one thing. You know, sometimes you send your elected officials and you see them at events and you see them in your neighborhood, you see them walking door to door and you send them off to Lansing, or they go to the Attorney General's office, or they were in Congress. I can tell you one important thing. The Bill Schuette that you see here today and the conversations that he has with you is the same Bill Schuette who showed up every day in every office he served, and he served this district. So, and if you ever have somebody that you know in your life, a friend, that you tell somebody, hey, I'm a friend of Bill Schuette, and they actually feel better for you, that's Bill Schuette, right? Does it say any more than that? So his faith, his family, all of that is real. We are so blessed in this state to have a warrior for our conservative principles in every office he had. So Bill, Cynthia, thank you very, very much. And he tried so hard, now he has another one right up there coming up. So it's going to be the same way. I want to thank you for just taking just a couple of minutes on this. You know, if you look around, you know that America is just simply an amazing place. And Michigan is a special place. But something's broken. Something's broken. And the people in this room are going to be part of that solution. In just 2 years, the average family is spending $700 per month more on goods, groceries, and gasoline. In just 3 years. I was talking to a cashier at Myers, and she was telling me her hardest day isn't when the cart comes up lighter than it used to in these families that she's seen go by for the last 10 years. It was when people get to the counter and they put things that they bought week after week after week. But the bill got so high they had to take things off of the conveyor belt and put it back in the cart to take it back in the store. And what is our President Biden doing? Running around the country saying, hey, ain't things better? Inflation is only really bad now. You think about, we would even have the conversation just a few short years ago that biological men are competing against women in sports. Would we even have that conversation at this event 3 years ago? If you think about the challenges we have with communist China and what they're trying to do to the United States, and I'm going to tell you why this is so important that we get right and that we get fired up for this next election, because I don't believe we have 2, 4, 6 years to wait to start correcting these problems. So China has a bigger army. 2 years ago, their Navy is now bigger than the United States Navy. They've weaponized space. Their cyber warfare program has devastated intellectual property across the United States and around the globe. And they're not done yet. And you know how they say they're going to beat the United States? They say, you know how we're going to beat them? We're going to beat them, we're not going to fire a shot because they're soft and they're self-absorbed. That's what the Chinese are telling our allies and adversaries around the world. Think of it. We're soft and we're self-absorbed. You almost wonder if they might be a little bit right on that. And what we have to do to empower ourselves to stand up and compete against China. They're teaching their 8th graders quantum mechanics. Last year in the United States of America, 57% of high school seniors could not read past the 6th grade level. You tell me how we can continue to be a great country if we can't educate our kids to read and write. And as my dad would say, the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic. We're falling behind. And we're falling behind because they're trying to chase parents out of school and invite in social engineers into school. We've got to stop that. We've got to stop it soon. There are so many important things that we can do to get this right. And certainly, I brought slides in a 4-hour presentation on how to do that. I just want to say this one thing. We know our borders are broken. We have a solution. These are things we absolutely can do. We can actually have reading reclamation and get our kids reading at 12th grade level again. We can do this. Matter of fact, if you're on welfare and you can't read, there's a 70% chance, by the way, if you're on welfare for more than one cycle, you can't read past the 4th grade level. Don't you think it's time we say, well, you have to give something back? And what you're going to give back is you're going to go through a reading reclamation program and you're going to learn how to read before you get your next government check. Yeah, you got it. But none of this is going to happen if we are at each other's throats. We've had a little bit of a bumpy road in the last few years in the state. And when we don't work together, we lose an opportunity to have Bill Schuette as a governor. Yeah. Tell me the state would be a lot better if we were having this event with Governor Bill Schuette. Well, we lost our way a little bit, right? Why politicians were banning gas stoves, the Chinese were stealing our intellectual property and developing modular nuclear reactors, and we were fighting amongst ourselves as Republicans. We are conservatives. We are the conservative principles that will get America back on track. But this is the time. This is the day. And I have to tell you, Kathy Lakeman is so right. It starts today. We can't wait until next week or the following week or even into 2024. Imagine if you can get just one more person to the poll. You can sign a petition to get the right candidate. I know one of those, by the way. Might be interested. You can see it in the back. Oh, am I allowed to say that, Kathy? Oh, I'm so sorry. We do have petitions. But you think about what's at stake. This is bigger than our local parties. It's bigger than our national parties. This is a story about neighbors helping neighbors and all the people who play by the rules in this country and in our state. They pay their taxes. They help their neighbors. They serve their country. That's what this election is about. And you see the Schuettes have service in their family. We have it in ours. Our son graduated from the Naval Academy. He's the 4th generation of Rogers to serve this country. I served in the United States Army. Don't ask me how I got a Navy son. We've been talking about this. We screwed this up pretty badly. But we're still proud of him. My wife, Kristi, who is also in public service, works for the Customs and Border Patrol, Border Protection. She corrects me every time I say it. Right? Also served in Iraq. Matter of fact, yeah, you bet. Matter of fact, I always say, I was an FBI agent trained in firearms, but I also preface that by saying, remember that FBI when we actually chased criminals? Remember? Oh, come on, work with me, people. That's funny right there. But I say that because when there's a bump in the night in our house, my wife survived a pretty traumatic incident, an ED in Iraq. I always say she's tougher than woodpecker lips. That's tough. Think about that. You mock me now, but you're going to use that. You know you are. So when there's a bump in the night in our house, I always say, honey, that sounds pretty bad. You might want to go check that out. Listen, we all have something to offer. All of you have been part of the solution for the state. And whatever you're doing, we need to re-engage and reignite this notion of how great and wonderful America is. It is an amazing place. But it's going to happen with you knocking on an extra door. It's going to happen with you hanging another piece of lip, making a phone call, taking the time to talk to somebody who might not be there and tell them why they should be for the party and the candidate that's going to help get America back on track. I know you can do it. We're going to ask a lot of you, all of us, as a candidate, and I might not be your candidate. For those that I'm not your candidate, I think the election's sometime in December. But this is our opportunity to rebuild our party bigger and better than ever. I know what Bill Schuette kind of outlined, the county party. If everybody took that task at every county level, we are going to win across the state. People are tired of this. I'll give you one stat, real quick. Remember those good conservatives that fought for family values and all the kind of principles that we talk about, lower taxes and a government doesn't work against you, it works for you? That's what we're going to fight for in this election. And with your help, we will get there. People are ready for normal again. Let's give them normal conservatism that takes back the state. We're going to send a United States Senator back and take a little common sense, Michigan common sense, back to Washington, D.C. And as my dad would say, we'll give them a size 12 where it probably ought not to go. Thank you very, very much. Get out there, get to work. Kristi Noem, thank you so much for being here. Great governor. Appreciate it.
Please welcome our 95th District State Representative, Bill G. Schuette.
All right, thank you very much. And you know, Dad, this microphone works perfectly well. So, good evening, Midland, and welcome to the Bill Schuette Barbecue. You know, I have been to quite a few of these Bill Schuette barbecues over the year. In fact, I think one of my very first campaign events as a babe in arms was a Bill Schuette barbecue. My mother, Cynthia, is here. She can fact check me on that, but I'm pretty darn sure that's the case. And, you know, in all my years, we've never had a barbecue quite like this. We have a great night. We have a great crowd. We have not one, but we have two distinguished speakers in Congressman Mike Rogers and our very special guest, Governor of South Dakota, Kristi Noem. So Congressman Rogers, I too am a former intelligence officer, and I admire your push to bring accountability back to the federal government and to the FBI. You bring a catalog of experience and talent to this race for the United States Senate. We in Midland are delighted that you came to our barbecue, and I look forward to working with you in the months and weeks to come. Let's give it up one more time for Congressman Mike Rogers. And we have so many community and business leaders here tonight, elected officials. Dad, I'm glad you did the intros and didn't forget anybody, me myself included. So thank you everyone for being here, and thank you for coming to the barbecue and investing in the Midland County GOP. This barbecue is our way, the Midland way, to raise money for our local Republican Party. Kathy Lycum and her team provide dynamic leadership that sets the tone statewide for how we lead, how we work together, and how we will win in November 2024. So others in our state, they can pick fights, they can squabble. In Midland, we are focused on winning and getting results. And speaking of winning, in addition to serving as your state representative in Midland, I serve as the vice chair of the House Republican Campaign Committee. And I work with my colleagues in the House of Representatives to retake our Republican majority. Yeah, we need to do it. Because let me tell you what, the margins are narrow, painfully so. We are 2 House seats and less than 2,000 votes in the last election from the majority. And as we know, the margins are narrow, but the stakes are very high. Because Michigan has suffered under the far-left, out-of-control agenda of the Lansing Democrats. Their policies are putting people out of work, they're driving up prices, and they're forcing families and businesses away from our state. So this election has very high stakes. If we stay on our path, Democrats will continue and try and make Michigan a high-tax, low-growth state like Illinois or California. Or we can, and I believe we will, course correct to a pro-freedom path led with bold conservative leadership that is modeled by our next speaker, Governor Kristi Noem. You see, here in Michigan, we have a leadership deficit and we have a freedom deficit. I'll say that again. We have a leadership deficit and we have a freedom deficit. Democrats are restricting freedom in the workplace by eliminating right to work. They want to force us into a disastrous Green New Deal energy policy that will lead to high utility bills and rolling blackouts. And all the while, the governor has decided to create a commission to study why we are not growing as a state. We'll go figure. So instead, I suggest that we all look west to see how South Dakota handles these challenges. look to Governor Noem, who is leading a state where freedom, opportunity, and growth they're as prominent as Mount Rushmore. Because Governor Noem understands that economic freedom is a key to the future. In South Dakota, there were no lockdowns. Sick people were not placed in nursing homes, and South Dakota was open for business. And Governor Noem understands that education freedom is a cornerstone to our success as a country. She gets it. Parents must be in charge of their child's education. And schools are a place for instruction, not indoctrination. Governor Noem, you are a dynamic, tough, smart governor. There is no leadership deficit in South Dakota. There is no freedom deficit in South Dakota. So ladies and gentlemen, friends in mid-Michigan, let's welcome the leadership governor, the freedom governor, Kristi Noem from South Dakota.
Wow, what an introduction. I'm going to take Bill home with me. Is that okay? Everywhere I go, I'm going to take him with me to introduce me. That was absolutely fantastic. Well, listen, I am Kristi Noem, Governor of South Dakota. And let me tell you, I showed up here tonight just to tell you that you guys have a really lousy governor. I'm sure you're aware of that, but she is a lousy governor. You know, it was 2 years ago was the last time I was in Michigan. I was up at Mackinac Island. And what's funny about that story, we were reminiscing when I got here tonight about how I got there. That event that I was speaking at, I think was your Republican Party convention that you have every year. I understand it's next week again, correct? But it happened to be the same day as our Governor Noem's Buffalo Roundup in the Black Hills of South Dakota. So in order to make it to that convention, what I had done is we have 30,000 people that show up to watch our Buffalo Roundup, and I always ride on it. And we had had a very, very long and dusty Buffalo Roundup that day. I literally got off my horse. They put me right in the vehicle, took me to the airport. I got on an airplane and I flew to Michigan. Then I got on a ferry, crossed the ferry, got off at a dock, got into a wagon pulled by horses, and showed up at the hotel at like midnight or something. And I thought, you know, that's quite a day. That's like the American dream, isn't it? You start the day on a horse and you end the day by horses delivering you to your room. But it was wonderful. I think I spoke the next morning and had to head right out. So it is, I gotta tell you, today to be with all of you, it's like a pep talk. You guys are America, and I'm so excited about all of the work that you're doing, what Kathy is doing to lead you with a vision of hope, and to really tell your story and to get leaders in positions to where they can impact families. If we've learned anything the last several years in this country, it's that leadership has consequences. It matters who's in positions of leadership because of the decisions that they make, how it impacts you and your family, your opportunities for your business, and even the success that you can continue to pass on to our children and our grandchildren. So I think all of you probably know a little bit about me. You've probably seen a little bit of me or heard some stories. Don't believe them all. There's some of them that are true, and then there's some that I want to tell you a little bit about tonight about our state that I think is so phenomenal. And I hope you will use it to see what you can apply to your day-to-day lives here as well. But ever since I was a little girl, all I wanted to do was to grow up and be a farmer and rancher with my dad. My dad was like John Wayne. He was tough. I mean, he was a cowboy. We farmed and ranched. In fact, my dad was the guy who yelled upstairs every single day to wake us kids up. He would say, "Get up. More people die in bed than anywhere else." I remember laying in my bed thinking, really? I mean, is that true? But I guess it is true. I mean, more people die in bed than anywhere else, so you might as well get out of bed in the morning. But we worked together as a family. We had a very large farming operation. I tell people quite consistently successfully that the lessons that we learned, we didn't know we were learning at the time. I think the greatest gift that our parents gave to us was the gift of being tough and being problem solvers. One day when I was about 10 years old, we were building a fence with Dad. And I remember he turned around to me when he was about to pound in a post, and he looked at me and he said, "Where's the post mom?" Which is the post pounder. I'm sure if any of you put up a campaign sign, you know what a post pounder is, right? He said, "Where's the post mall?" And I said, "Well, it's in the pickup." He said, "Go get it." And I could tell he was super irritated with me that I didn't have it. So I ran as fast as I could to the pickup, got the post mall, ran back, handed it to him, and he looked at me and he said, "Listen, you should know what I need before I know what I need." And I remember standing there as a 10-year-old thinking, how am I ever going to know what he needs before he knows what he needs? But what he was trying to teach me was to think ahead. To think 3 steps ahead of him so that we could be more efficient, get our work done, and to problem solve. And see, that's what we're not doing for our kids today. We're not being strategic and thinking, what's the precedent that I'm setting up here? If I make this decision today, how does this impact me for the next week or 2 or the next 6 months? What's the ripple effect that this has for my kids? What kind of an America and a country are we leaving for our grandkids? Since the last time I saw some of you, I'm now a grandma, 2 times over. I've got little Miss Addie, who's 2 years old, and then she's got a little brother, Branch, that's 9 months old, that's already all up in her business. So, but they are the reason that I get up every single day and continue to do what I do. One of the other stories I'll tell you about my parents is that my dad never taught us to do anything. He just made us do it. I remember one time when I was, I think, 12 years old, we were leaving a field with a semi-truck full of loaded corn. It was harvest time. And we were going to take it home. He was driving, I was in the passenger seat because I believe I was only about 12 years old. And we started going down the road, and he turned to me as we were driving down the road and he said, "Kristi, I forgot I got to bring the other truck home. So jump over here, take the wheel, take this thing home, make your corners wide, and I'll see you there." And he jumped out the door. I remember I dove across the cab, grabbed the wheel, and I immediately started to cry. Because I had no idea how to drive a semi. I had never done that before. I drove all the way home, the 7 miles that we had to go to get back into the farmyard. I took the widest corners you've ever seen. I never shifted once. I got into the yard. I didn't even know how to stop the truck. So I just turned it off and let it drift to a stop. And after it finally stopped, I remember thinking to myself, I cannot believe that I lived. And then the very next thing that I thought was, I bet I can drive anything now. But see, that was a gift that he gave to us, is that when he gave us impossible things to do, he taught us to be problem solvers, to figure it out. And then when we accomplished them, it gave us the confidence to take on the next bigger challenges, the bigger things that were ahead of us. We are crippling our children in this country. We are crippling our children by doing everything for them. If you are a parent or a grandparent in this room, I want to ask you to knock it off. Give your children in your life impossible things to do. It's not our job to solve their problems for them, do things for them. It's our job to prepare them for life. Because when they take on those tough things that they go through, they become problem solvers. And Lord knows we need some problem solvers in our world today, don't we? We need some people that not only when they solve a few problems, that they go on and take on even bigger challenges. Because we've got challenges in this country. We've got a ton of blessings. But we've got some challenges that we're going to need some tough people to help us figure it out. So the best advice I'd give you tonight is to give your children, give the people in your life, the young people in your life, impossible things to do. It's a gift when they learn how to get through those situations. So growing up, that's what I did. I worked with my dad every day. I loved cows and horses. If you do read my book, you will get more than your fair share of cow stories. Just because I think every family memory that we have is chasing cows. But cows can make you feel better, can't they? They're just wonderful. But after I went to high school, started to go to college, got married, was working on the farm. My dad was 49 years old when I was still in college. He was killed in an accident. He was 49 at the time. It devastated our family. We had one of the largest farming operations in the state of South Dakota at the time. We had a cow-calf operation, several other businesses, and we had no idea what we were ever going to do without him. I ended up quitting college, coming home, becoming the general manager of all the businesses, but it was just several months after Dad passed away that we got a letter in the mail from the IRS that said we owed death taxes. So we had a lot of land and a lot of machinery and a lot of cattle, but we didn't have any money in the bank. But there was a federal law that said that whatever you owned at the time of death, that you had to remit some of the value of it to the federal government, and at that time the rate was 55%. So if you can imagine, I was 22 years old, trying to figure out how to keep these businesses together and our family together, and then all of a sudden we owed millions of dollars to the federal government and no way to pay it. It made me angry. So people ask how I got involved in government politics. It was that. It was that. I started showing up at meetings and going to meetings. We had to figure out a way to pay off those taxes, and I went to probably 30 different banks asking them to help us finance those taxes. And all of them turned this young girl down, and finally I had one banker take pity on me. He financed part of it and then found a couple of wealthy other farmers that would loan it to me with no collateral, but it took me 10 years to pay off those taxes. Started a hunting lodge to make more money off of our land so that we could pay those taxes. We also did custom combining and harvesting and worked around the clock to get it done, but we did. Now at that time, the U.S. Senate Majority Leader was Tom Daschle. Does anybody remember Tom Daschle? He was from South Dakota. Everybody thinks about South Dakota and thinks it's a super conservative state. It's really not. It's just very populist. In fact, it wasn't that long ago that we had an all-Democrat delegation. And at that time, Tom Daschle was the U.S. Senate Majority Leader, so I started showing up at his meetings and became a thorn in his flesh about tax policy, became passionate about tax reform. He ended up appointing me, I think to get rid of me, to oversee all the federal farm programs in the state. So I did that while Brian and I were raising our kids, and Brian was running our family insurance agency that he had, and did that, and then people started to recruit me to run for office. In South Dakota, our legislature is only in session for 40 days, a little over a month. It's a citizen legislature. They come in, pass a budget, pass their bills, and go home. As governor, it's fantastic. I mean, they're there for 5 weeks and then they're gone. So I love it. But I ran for the legislature, and I was there about a week, and I realized that the leadership controlled everything. So I decided to run for leadership. Became the assistant majority leader, and then started to get recruited to run for Congress. When I ran for Congress in 2010, the race for South Dakota's lone congressional seat was one of the top 5 races in the nation. And I remember being in that tough race thinking, what have I done to my life? I was running against a blue dog Democrat who hadn't voted for Obamacare. She didn't vote for the stimulus package. All she had done was vote for Nancy Pelosi as Speaker. So I talked about Nancy Pelosi a lot. It was enough. We ended up winning that race by 5 points. I got to Congress and looked around and thought, are there any normal people here? Please, dear God, send me 1 or 2 normal people that I could meet. Well, I knew Mike Rogers. Thank you guys so much for electing good leaders. When you send Republican leaders from Michigan, boy, they are people that have influence in the House of Representatives. I want to tell you that there's a lot of people, when you're in the Republican conference in the U.S. House of Representatives, there's a lot of talking that goes on. There's a lot of people that talk to hear themselves talk. And a lot of times you just don't even listen, because they say the same thing all the time. When Mike Rogers would stand up and talk, the whole room would get quiet, because he's a man of influence and of wisdom, and he's a statesman. There's very few of them. So I would ask you, if you haven't gotten engaged in helping a campaign for a long time, help Mike Rogers. He's a fantastic leader. He can bring you a seat. Well, listen, I served in Congress for 4 terms, had the chance to serve on the Ways and Means Committee, which is the committee that has the most ways it can be mean, is how I describe it. It has jurisdiction over tax policy, healthcare policy, trade agreements. Enjoyed it very much. Served on the Armed Services Committee as well. Education and Workforce, Ag Committee, Natural Resources Committee. I was pretty busy. At one time, I was on 3 committees and 9 subcommittees at the same time. When you're in Congress from South Dakota, you don't have a delegation. You have 1 member in the House. And so most people would say, how does it go when you guys get along with your delegation? Maybe you guys disagreed as a delegation. I was always right in my delegation. I won every argument. Whatever I said went. But it allowed me the chance to work on a lot of different policies. But I was very blessed that as passionate as I was about tax reform, that I had the chance to have President Trump in the White House, who also wanted to do tax reform. And the fact that we got that done, signed into law, it was a historic piece of legislation that put money back in Americans' pockets. And it was absolutely phenomenal to be a part of that committee that got to work on that bill for 2 years. Now you ask why I'm telling you all this. I think that it's important that if you're going to understand what I'm going to share with you tonight, that you understand a little bit about me. My heart, why I do what I do, why I serve, why my family is so important. When I was out in Congress and had been there for 8 years and saw that I had the chance to make a real difference on policy, I started to realize something. In Congress, you get to work on policy and give speeches and do a lot of good things, but I also recognized that governors are CEOs. Governors get the chance every single day to wake up and make decisions and to set an agenda. And frankly, our state of South Dakota was dying. People were moving out. Our kids and our grandkids could not stay in our state and get the careers that they wanted. Our population was declining. Our businesses were going down. Our revenues were going down. And leaders were making decisions to raise taxes to cover expenses rather than make hard decisions to make cuts. So I decided to run for governor. Decided to run for governor on building stronger families, because I believe that if you have a strong family, you can fix a lot of what's wrong with this country. And I also ran and campaigned on the fact that I believed South Dakota could be an example to the nation. That was my campaign. We are a small state. We don't have that many people, but that also means that we can do things that other states can't do. We can be nimble, almost like a pilot project for what we believe as conservatives, and prove that it works. I had no idea that our opportunity to be that example was going to happen in a pandemic, but it really did. When I got elected as governor, I was the very first female governor of South Dakota elected. I remember standing in the rotunda of the Capitol, and it never really hit me because growing up with a dad who was a cowboy, you don't get treated any different than you do the boys. Just everybody has to work all the time. And my entire life, I'd just been treated, I didn't think much about the difference between being male or female when I was driving trucks or riding horses. But it was interesting standing in that rotunda when I raised my hand and took my oath. It happened to be the 100th anniversary of the celebration of when women got the right to vote in South Dakota. So to be the first female governor being sworn in on the 100th anniversary of women first getting the right to vote, I was standing there listening to them talk about that during the inaugural swearing-in ceremony, and me thinking, this is kind of a really big deal. And I better not screw this up. It really hit me the importance of what I was doing. And as I stood there and I laid my hand on my dad's Bible and took an oath, I took an oath to uphold the Constitution of the state of South Dakota and the Constitution of the United States. And I thought, every decision that I made needs to come from this promise I just made here in front of the entire state. And every decision that I make has to come off of that as its foundation. And that decision was made that day. Now I got sworn in, and within 2 days had to give my State of the State and my budget address. We started in that legislative session. It went fast. The last day of legislative session, our state got hit with a bomb cyclone. And I don't know if you even know what a bomb cyclone is. I didn't, because we'd never had one before. But we had 6 feet of snow on the western half of the state, 6 inches of rain on frozen ground in March, and the entire state flooded. 63 of my 66 counties were declared federal disaster areas. So all I did in 2019 was flooding. Building roads and bridges, putting in water treatment plants, putting communities back together, taking care of people, dealing with FEMA. It was a mess, and I thought for sure 2020 was going to be a lot better. And then we had COVID. So listen, I think that when COVID came, we got our first cases on March 10th in South Dakota. And when I look back at what we all went through, I believe that I did what every other governor in this country did. We all talked to our health experts. We all studied the research, got as prepared as we possibly could, and listened to folks and tried to do what we could to be ready for what this strange virus was that was coming. I think what I did different is I took it a step further. I spent a lot of time with my constitutional attorneys, a lot of time with my general counsel to find out exactly what authority I had as governor and what authority that I didn't have as governor. Because I knew that when leaders overstep their authority, especially in a time of crisis, that's when we break this country. And I didn't want to be the person that did more than what my job was and do that. So frankly, when it came to making decisions during the pandemic, I don't have any idea how these other governors made their decisions. We had conference calls all the time about what was going on, what we were learning about the virus, about discussions that we had. I had conference calls with a lot of governors. Your governor never got on one of those, but we talked about what authority governors have and that they don't have. I was shocked by the decisions that she was making. I came here in 2020. I've never seen such miserable people in my life than the people of Michigan. I felt so bad for you. I think every time we had a meeting or anything, we had to do it outside. Couldn't meet, and people still had to wear masks. I couldn't believe that people were living that way, and I felt so bad for you. I talked to family members who'd had generational businesses that they'd lost because some arbitrary decision that wasn't based on science and facts. It was shocking. What I told my folks in South Dakota was that, listen, we are going to get through this together. I'm going to let you use personal responsibility to make the best decisions for your families and for your businesses. We're going to use common sense, and the number one thing that you can do to beat this virus is to wash your hands. That's what the science told us, wash your hands. People ask me all the time what the biggest surprise for me was in 2020. I was just saying, it was the fact that I had to tell people 1,000 times to wash your hands. Like, who would have thought? Listen, we ended up being the only state in the country that never once closed a single business. I didn't even define what an essential business was, because I don't believe that governors have the authority to tell you that your business isn't essential. We never once mandated anything. I just stood up and told folks, listen, here's the facts and the information, and we will make the best decisions that we can and get through this together. And overwhelmingly, we did. In fact, even when the president offered those elevated unemployment benefits, do you remember, so that folks could get through the pandemic better, we were the only state in the country that said, I said to the president, thank you so much for that flexibility, but we don't need it. Our people want to work. They want us to work. In fact, in January of 2020, this was before the virus even came, had even shown up, my State of the State address was titled, Open for Business. And we had no idea what was in store for us that calendar year. I think it was almost prophetic that I would happen to build my entire State of the State speech that we had worked on for 3 or 4 months with that kind of a title, recognizing that we needed to recruit businesses back to our state, people back to our state. And then all of a sudden we get hit with this virus that changes everything. Let me tell you a little bit about where South Dakota is today. South Dakota right now is growing at 10 times the national average. We have hundreds and hundreds of businesses that have moved into our state, tens of thousands of people that have moved into our state. We recently broke the record in the nation for the lowest unemployment rate in history. We have a 1.8% unemployment rate, and there's no other state that's ever had more people working at one time, because they really enjoy getting up and going to work and understand the purpose that there is in it. We have women-owned businesses that are doing better than anywhere else. We have the highest rate of housing developments that are going in our state. And while people have been out there working and thriving and doing well, we've had historic revenues coming into our state. We've broken every record for tourism, for hunting and fishing licenses sold, for industry that's expanded and done well. That we've also at the same time saw our mental health challenges go down, our suicide rates go down, and our drug overdoses are going down. When the rest of the country had riots and violence going on, it made me angry. I could not believe the disrespect to our law enforcement. So I did a national advertising campaign to law enforcement officers. And I said to them during that summer, I said, listen, if you want to live somewhere where people respect you, where your family can have the community wrap their arms around you, then move to South Dakota. That very first week, 800 law enforcement officers raised their hands and said, we want to move to South Dakota. And since then, thousands of them have decided to pick up their families and come to a state where they are respected, where we uphold law and order. It has been phenomenal. I guess the reason that I tell you all of this is because for years, we as Republicans, we have talked about what we believe, our platform, what our principles are, our values. And we've told people what the benefits of that would be if they would just embrace them and put them into practice. But see, all we did in South Dakota is we just did what Republicans always say we believe. We just did it, and it worked. So now I think in this election that's coming up, we no longer have to ask people to buy into what our values are. All we have to do is point to a state like South Dakota and say, this is what Republican policies and principles bring you. They bring you more economic freedom. They give you more income into your pockets. We just made the largest tax cut in South Dakota history. Listen, we don't have an income tax. We don't have a personal property tax. All we have is a 4.2% sales tax. And we just gave South Dakota the largest tax cut that they've ever had in history because we have so much revenue coming in from that sales tax that we can do that. We put high-speed internet access from border to border into every single home. We have built roads and bridges. When's the last time you heard of a state building a railroad all the way across the state before on their own? We did that with these historic revenues because we saw the economic benefits of just embracing freedom. Now, you would have never convinced me before that the power of what government and people, how they will use fear to control people. They used fear to control people and to push their agenda. Because the government told people that they couldn't gather together, they gave up their freedom of assembly. Because the government told people that they couldn't go to church, they gave up their freedom of religion. And because the government told people what they could say and what they couldn't say, people are giving up their freedom of speech. We cannot continue to allow that to happen. And we can't continue. That's why it's so incredibly important that now more than ever that you don't get discouraged. That you don't decide to stay home and to focus on what's on the nightly news and instead of thinking that it won't make a difference anymore. It'll make more of a difference than it ever did before. Who would have thought that little South Dakota would be growing like it has been? For years and years, people called us a flyover state. And now people are calling us a place that they want to live so that they can have a main street that's safe, they can send their kids to a school that can be, the neighbor teaches them and they can get an education and thrive and continue to live their dreams. Listen, the very first bill that I brought as governor when I was sworn in was to put more civics and history into our classrooms. That would have been January of 2019 when we weren't even talking about education back then. And guess what? My Republicans killed it. They killed that bill right away because they said it would be too much work for teachers to have to change their curriculum, that it would be too difficult to implement it. And guess what happened just a year and a half later, when everybody realized what wasn't being taught in our classrooms, now overwhelmingly our Republicans passed that bill. But we need to make sure that we're continuing to invest in our kids and teach them our history. If we don't teach them our history, we'll be doomed to repeat it. And I get nervous that sometimes the American people don't remember what it was just like a few years ago and how the government came in, made arbitrary decisions not based on science and facts, and took away their freedoms. We have to be able to point to a state like South Dakota where freedom was embraced and people thrived, and people did better, and people are happier. There's one thing I want to ask you before I leave tonight, because I know I've talked a long time. But there's one thing I want to ask you. Actually, I'm going to two. I changed it. I'm not a politician, but there's two things. I'm going to change it. Number one is to say yes. So many times people think they're too busy, and they get asked to do something, and they say, no, I shouldn't be doing that. I shouldn't get overstretched. I need to prioritize. I can't do that. What I'm going to ask you is to do the exact opposite thing. To say yes when people ask you to do something. My grandma, when I was pregnant with our first daughter, I remember we had a baby shower, and they went around the room, and they asked everybody to give me some advice on being a new mom. Who's all gone to a baby shower? Okay, so I went to a baby shower not too long ago, and there was men there. And I don't know who thought that was a good idea. But it ruined the baby shower. So, man, if you get invited to a baby shower, don't go. All right? Baby showers are for women. All right? Oh, the men are clapping. Listen, my grandma said to me, she was a tough German woman. She was very tough, and she said, Kristi, just say yes as much as you possibly can. Because so much, as a mom, so often you have to say no. And I was shocked by that, because my grandma was the one who would say no and tell you 10 reasons why you were wrong. So I took that to heart, but I also remembered that when she told me that, I decided I wanted to be a mom who said yes. But I also applied it to all of my life. Whenever people asked me to do something, I decided that I would be somebody who said yes. I would go do it. Didn't mean I had to do it forever. Didn't mean I had to do it for the next 10 years. It just meant why not go try it and do it and give it a whirl, see if I could contribute. And what I would say, especially to the young folks that are in the room, when people ask you to do something, serve on a committee, go to a meeting, you may not be interested in it at all, just go anyways. Say yes and do it. You may find a gift or a talent that you didn't know that you had. You may be phenomenal at something that you didn't even know you were interested in. You may meet your next mentor that will change your life forever, or your next employer, maybe your next business partner. So when people ask you, when a candidate comes up to you and asks you to do something, say yes. Because it may make all the difference in the world, not just for your life, but for theirs too. The other thing that I would say to you is that as Republicans, we need to get over ourselves. All right? We are so offended by each other, we quit talking to each other. I had a pastor years ago say to me, Kristi, people are going to throw offenses out at you all the time. They're going to throw them out there, but you're the one who decides if you want to bend over, pick them up, and carry them around with you. And if you do, then you're the one who's carrying the burden. You have the opportunity every single day that when people throw out an offense at you, to walk right by and let it lay there. And then you're not the one carrying the offense. I'm going to ask you all just to get over yourselves. Quit being so offended by each other. We live in a country that loves to be offended by each other, don't we? Oh, I can't believe they said that. I can't believe it. Get over it. Listen, this world is not going to change. Michigan is not going to change. We're not going to elect good leaders unless you guys start talking to people again. There are people in your community that you quit talking to because politics is divisive. There's people in your church that you don't bring politics up to. There are people in your very own family that you don't talk to anymore because you've been so offended by them, or you don't want to have that conversation. Start talking to each other. Most people don't even listen. I would say most people have quit talking because nobody's listening to each other. So start by listening to them. Make sure that they feel heard. And then just ask them questions. Ask them questions about, well, what do you think about what happened here in Michigan during COVID? Have you heard about this little state called South Dakota? how well they're doing. That's what's so phenomenal about the opportunity that we have in front of us. We no longer have to talk in a philosophical manner. We no longer have to talk about this would happen if we did this. All you have to do is look from state to state to see what the consequences are of Democrat leadership, which is now socialist policies. The matter of the fact is that it's socialist, and Republican leadership, which is based on freedom and America and our history and keeping and protecting our Constitution, which is the foundation of this country. I went to one of our universities years ago on Constitution Day, which we just celebrated yesterday. And I went to a presentation the presentation was, is the Constitution relevant for today's student? And I thought, well, this will be interesting. So I went to listen to it. There was about 500 students in the union that were listening, and this was in South Dakota, one of our universities that we did not think had an issue. There was 5 different presenters on that panel today, and I listened to every single one of those presenters say that the Constitution was no longer relevant to today's student. Because they had not had the chance to weigh in and help draft it, because they hadn't had the chance to see it and impact it in their lives, that it was no longer relevant to them, and that it needed to be changed or completely discarded with. So the reality is that we have a generation here that doesn't know the treasure that we've gotten in this country. And as much as we say we've said it a lot, we haven't said it effectively. And so we need to deliver that message in a way that resonates with them. And that is, first of all, by caring enough to be involved in people's lives. Spend time with them, listen to them, use examples. We've never had a greater opportunity with better examples than what we just lived through the last 3 years. We have great hope. We have great hope and opportunity in front of us as long as we continue to be a part of the Republican Party, be unified, remember what we are fighting, and it is not each other. It is not each other. It is literally good versus evil when it comes to some of the policies that we see coming forward and being debated in this country. So embrace those folks that are willing to be in the arena fighting with a difference in their heart that they want to make for this country. I'm incredibly grateful for all of those that are willing to serve. I'm grateful for all of you in the party and what you do continuously to build people up and to help candidates out there win. More than ever, it's important that we win, right? We're all winners. So thank you so much for being warm and welcoming enough to invite me to come be with you. It was absolutely wonderful. The one tip that I want to give you all is if you want to get people to come to your dinners, all you have to do is put Bill Schuette in charge. And then I've got this lady that works for me. Her name is Beth. And Beth started, when I first ran for Congress, I didn't have any money. And people had talked me into running for Congress. And somebody said to me, you know, as soon as I announced and got my petitions in, I only had 2 months before the primary, and there had been 2 people already running for a year and a half. And I was running against our Secretary of State and a self-funding surgeon. And people said, you've got to hit the ground and go hard, fast. And so I called up Beth, who had been a county chairwoman, and I said to Beth, listen, Beth, I don't have any money. I don't even know if I can pay you. I was just wondering if you'd get in the pickup with me and help me campaign so I can win this primary. She goes, well, can I ask my husband to call you back in the morning? And I said, yes. So she called me at 8 o'clock the next morning and she said, I'm in. And she got in the pickup with me at 10 o'clock, 2 hours later, and we didn't come home for 2 months and campaign. And she didn't even know she was going to get paid, but she quit her job to do it. And Beth was my state director while I was in Congress. Now she's my deputy chief of staff. And I was in New Orleans yesterday. I've got to go to D.C. tomorrow. And what's so interesting is my husband Brian went home for a day to work, so he's sorry he missed you, but he went to New Orleans with me yesterday. But was that Beth, I said to Beth, I don't know if I can make it to Michigan. I mean, when we were trying to plan stuff, she goes, she goes, you were going to go to Michigan because I love that Bill Schuette. He is amazing. That's all right. So, I tell you what, good county chairwomen need to hang on to them. And they end up, setting agendas for governors. And Bill, thank you for your heart. I'm so thrilled that this dinner here honors you and your legacy in the state, and that you literally are leading the next generation by raising, obviously, one of the best that I'm going to take home with me tonight as well to hit the campaign trail. So God bless each and every one of you. Let's go win. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening.
Let's hear it again for Governor Kristi Noem of the great state of South Dakota. Governor Noem, I have one more favor to ask of you. Would you please indulge us by sticking around for one big group photo? If you could stand here. Thank you.
Everybody could please take their seats here once more while we welcome our county chair, Kathy Lakeham, back to the stage. That would be wonderful.
Thank you again, everybody. And didn't I tell you, what a great program. Governor Kristi Noem, thank you again for being here and for your inspiring message. And if you like the message that you heard from Chairman Mike Rogers, his team is here. They'd love to get your signature on his petition. And as party chair, you know I'm going to stay out of that race, but I encourage everyone to get involved with your candidates. Thank you all again. Thanks to our sponsors, our vendors. That concludes our barbecue. Please drive safely to your next destination and have a great weekend. Thank you.
Still stand